Hello, I'm Valerie Edwards with Fostering Families Today. Thank you for joining us as we explore building and strengthening the relationship between FIRST and resource families. Our guests today say it's possible, and they're going to tell you how they did it. As always, we invite you to join our conversation. Tell us where you're from, and whether you're a FIRST family or a resource family, how do you make your relationship work? Or if you're a professional staffer, what advice do you have for our guests and our listeners? Today's webinar is sponsored by the National Foster Parent Association. Connections was a key focal point of group's recent education conference. NFPA provides much needed training, support, and resources to all families, foster, adoptive, kinship, and biological. The National Foster Parent Association helps connect you. For more information, visit their website, nfpa.org. Fostering Families Today is a bi-monthly publication dedicated to informing, engaging, and educating foster, adoptive, and kinship families. You can connect with us on the various social media platforms, or if you haven't done so already, why not take a minute to join one of our Facebook groups? Our guest today, Vanessa Gomez Gerber, is a wife of 18 years and mother of 6, 2 through kinship placement resulting in guardianship. She is an adoptee herself, and she and her husband have had the privilege of welcoming many children into their family for more than 14 years. Vanessa is committed to finding opportunities to collaborate with biological parents of all the children she's had the pleasure of caring for, while also learning to set the necessary boundaries needed to ensure all involved are safe, heard, seen, and supported. And Jelana Goebel and Jennifer Bracken are 2 Portland, Oregon moms who live just 2 miles apart. Jennifer's biological child was fostered by Jelana before she and her husband adopted him. The 2 say they have walked an unlikely road of collaboration for the past 15 years through countless ups and downs. Jelana shares her journey in a debut memoir titled A Love-Stretched Life, Stories on Wrangling Hope, Embracing the Unexpected, and Discovering the Meaning of Family. Jennifer Bracken is the mother of 4. Jennifer grew up in the foster care system, and all 4 of her children have been child welfare involved at one point in their lives. Jennifer has 7 years clean, the longest consecutive stretch since she was a preteen, which Jennifer calls the proudest accomplishment of her life. And welcome all of you this morning to our webinar. Thanks for being here. There we have. Okay, Jennifer, Vanessa, and Jelana, thank you all for being here this morning. Vanessa, you want to turn on your mic? Okay, there you go. First of all, before we get started in the conversation, I want to thank you all for being here today. Thank you for being open and honest and vulnerable and willing to share your experiences with our readers, with the readers of our magazine, and with our viewers this afternoon. Jelana and Jennifer, let's start with you and tell me how you met.
Well, hello, I'm Jennifer. I don't know where to begin. So me and Jelana met at the Multnomah County Courthouse for my case. My child was removed from my care at 2.5 months old and was originally placed in a general applicant, then my aunt's house, and then with Jelana. And we met the day of court when I finally appeared. So.
And, all I knew at the time was what the caseworker had told me. She described Jennifer via her addiction, which was true. But I think also like to say, none of us would like to be described by one of our worst days of our lives. Right. So, and it's not an even sharing both ways. I feel like yeah. So it was my first time to have any sort of engagement with a child welfare involved parent. I handed Jennifer an 8x10 photograph of her beautiful baby boy, 6 months at the time. And she took it, she started crying, and I found myself like wrapping her up in a hug and kind of unexpectedly saying, I just want to let you know that I'm rooting for you, which I genuinely had not planned to say in advance. I didn't know what I would say or if I would say anything, but it just felt like this moment of humanity. And then it felt like I'm rooting for you became this lantern that was held up through the next very tumultuous few years to just say, that's kind of the overview. And there are a lot of twists and turns.
We'll get to the twists and turns, but
yeah, a lot of twists and turns, but that's how we met. And I feel like, we're really grateful to kind of claim one another as family through being, through being a resource parent and then an adoptive parent. And then like you said, two moms that are living in the same city, raising full biological brothers living in two different households.
Jennifer, is that the response you expected when you're faced with going to court, that you'd meet someone who'd say, tell me what you expected?
I don't know what I expected, to be honest. I never heard I'm rooting for you in my life. And that was the first day. And just by those simple words allowed me to realize that she was not like the rest of the foster homes that I'd been in, and it just kind of allowed the opportunity for myself to open up and be like, okay, you're not the same as these other people were when I was a kid, so yeah.
How long were you in foster care?
Almost 10 years, I think.
Almost 10 years. So did you transition from foster care and you're saying that throughout that experience, you never had someone who related to you?
I never transferred out. I didn't technically age out of foster care. I ran away at 17 and a half, and DHS finally decided that they were done chasing me. So yeah.
Okay. But so going back to my other question, you never had someone relate to you in that way throughout your time? No. Surprise. Okay. Vanessa's the other half of the team couldn't be with us today, which is unfortunate. However, we thank her for her courage being part of this journey. So Vanessa, your other half isn't here, but tell us how you met the first parents of, just tell us your story.
The first time that I met Nancy was at a DHS office. We were coming to bring our little guy for a visit. And I did not know what she looked like, and was kind of stumbling in with toys and a backpack and all the things, and saw her and didn't think that was her, but was curious as to why she was staring at us the whole time, and passed him and all of his belongings over to the caseworker. And then as I turned around, I saw her get up and walk with him into his visit. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that was my opportunity. I missed it. But I was there when, he was done with the visit, and that was my opportunity to stop and say hello. And it was awkward. It was uncomfortable, but it was really important. I had been fostering for at least, 12 years by then. And I just really wanted to make sure that she knew who I was. I could ask her some questions about things like, hey, here's some things I've noticed just in the last couple of days since he was just very recently placed. He doesn't like baths. How do you normally, get him clean? So tell me what you do. I'm having a hard time understanding a few words. Do you know what he's saying? What are his favorite foods? And she was so appreciative of those questions being asked so that I could better care for him. I passed along some pictures, and I asked her if she wanted to share any pictures, and she was really shy. And so she said that, she wasn't comfortable with that. And I said, well, I just want you to know that we talk about you every day. We pray for you every single night. And if and when you feel comfortable, we would love to have that in his room so that, he sees you. We talked about her being here today. She's never done anything like this. And, we've been in a relationship for 5 years now. And, she just said, gosh, I hadn't thought about how traumatizing that experience was for me in a while. And so I said, you know what, when you're ready, I'm here to support you. And, you know, if you don't ever want to do it, that's totally fine too. But you have an opportunity to share your experience and help people look differently at, you know, the experience that you went through, and help hold us accountable and be better. And so she knew that I was going to go ahead and, you know, move forward with this. And maybe one day she'll join me, and maybe one day we'll just keep being family.
One of the things that you talk about is, and Jennifer, you are nodding your head as we're both listening to Vanessa. One of the things you talk about is knowing those little things, like he doesn't like bath and he prefers this and so. Tell me the importance of Jennifer as a mom, Jelana as a resource mom, and Vanessa also as a resource mom, knowing those little things, how they make that, how important that is to your relationship. Jennifer, we'll start with you.
For me, you know, I remember Jelana asking little questions, you know, here and there, you know, it shows that my kid matters, that what I was doing with them prior matters, you know what I mean? Like, and it just shows that you have interest in trying to keep the child the way that they were when they came to you, and walk alongside the parent, you know what I mean? It just shows support in all different ways, you know? Yeah.
And I think, you know, oftentimes people ask Jennifer and I, like, how did you get here? Like, it's kind of an unlikely collaboration to see collaboration continue across foster care and across adoption. And I really think that what Vanessa was sharing is really the start. I think it's these small acts of like humanity and human decency, such as looking somebody in the eye, such as saying, hello, how are you? How's your day going? It is awkward. There's really no way to avoid that. But I really credit a lot of our relationship with Jennifer's courage and asking me this question.
If she could supervise my visits outside the DHS office.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, you know, I didn't know at the time that Jennifer had grown up in 63 foster homes, and she could only recount one that showed kindness to her. I didn't know that she was visiting in the very same office, in the very same room where she grew up, you know, many years prior, visiting her mom, and that was a really traumatic space for her. So when she said, Jelana, can you supervise visits outside the office? I just didn't know. Again, I'd never had any engagement with a child welfare involved parent before. So I asked the caseworker who gave me permission. And that's kind of what started us on 150 hours of like supervised visits. There were some wild and woolly turns in there, but it really, I think, boiled down to giving me the opportunity to learn, just like you would get to learn a new friend or a new colleague. It's not like you sit down and say, tell me everything about you. I'll tell you everything about me. That's not real life. It's just these short snippets of just exchange over time. And over time, in learning more about Jennifer's story, I think it allowed me to think, gosh, like had I lived her story, there's actually a really good chance I might be standing where she's now standing. So how would I want to be engaged with?
Go on, Vanessa, you don't have to raise your hand, just
I don't want to interrupt, but I just wanted to say that, you know, when a child is coming into a new home, like everything is new, you know, nothing is familiar. And from culture to, you know, all the things that come with that, music and food, and how many people are in the house, and, you know, how many parents are in the house. And so just getting to know a bit more about that child and their interests and the things that make them feel safe and seen and more secure. You know, asking parents for a blanket. Is there a blanket that they sleep with every night? We want to make sure those things are, you know, are included with them as well. So I speak from that like adoptee part of me where, you know, even if I didn't get to meet my biological family till I was a bit older, it was just so important to me still that I knew who they were. And if there was any possible way that I could see what they look like or have a letter from them or have any sort of connection, that was going to be really important. And even as an adult, you know, I think about the foods that I didn't grow up eating and experiencing certain cultures. And those things are important to me today that I'm, you know, carrying on into my adulthood.
Well, each relationship, every relationship has high points and low points. Vanessa, let's start with you. What have been some of the high points in that relationship that you built?
One of our high points was really quickly, the first week that we were together, we had court. And similar to Jelana, what I realized was that DHS could only do 1 hour per week at the DHS office. And I knew so quickly that that was just not enough. There was a bond between our little guy and his mama that was just more unique than I had experienced. And so I just kind of asked the judge, like, I'm willing. At that point, I was a stay-at-home mom. So, I said, can I do more visits with them? And he said, wait, what? It was almost like he's never heard of it before. I'm like, you've got to have heard that, resource parents are trying to, be more collaborative with families. And he said, yes, absolutely. As much as you can and are willing, please do that. And so we were on from there. We were at the park all the time. She was at every single doctor's appointment. So just the ability to be able to partner with her a lot closer and spend more time together. And then another high that I just think is kind of fun and funny is that just about 2 months ago, she's really working towards getting a driver's license, which means she needs to first learn how to get behind the wheel. And so I got to take her through one of the school parking lots and drive around in some circles with her. And so just watching her like bravely take those steps towards more independence is really exciting and fun to be a part of.
Did before we go back to Jelana and Jennifer, did your agency encourage you to spend more, have more of these visits? I mean, how did you get to that point that you knew that this is what needed to happen?
She was really willing to talk. She was showing up to her visits. I always recommend and I actually, Jennifer, kind of learned this from Jennifer as well, is you don't want to give too much all at once. You kind of want to work towards it, because if you do too much of that and you have to pull back, that can be really difficult for people. So, we just started really with just another extra visit at the park, watch how that goes. And then, little by little, you're just adding more. And with him, I only had this little guy for 3 months. And I truly believe that he was able to go home sooner because we were able to get them to spend so much time together. And I was able to see that interaction between him and his mom and advocate for her.
Jennifer, Jelana, every relationship has high points. What are some of the high points in your relationship?
I don't know.
I think this sounds kind of almost silly as a high point, but I think it's something that both Jennifer and I felt like was unique. And that was after, a long time, the case was changed from reunification to Plan B adoption. And during that time, it's a pretty unusual move to be like, hey, do you want to go out to lunch? But we actually did go out to lunch after the plan was changed, not to really talk about the case direction, not to talk about post-adoption mediation that would come, but really to just say, hey, we started as 2 moms that are walking towards each other and wanting to respect one another, and we've gotten to know one another. What does it look like at this particular milestone to continue to do that? And, just to piggyback on what Vanessa was saying, I really think that though our agency did not really encourage us, other than just kind of giving us 2 thumbs up, yeah, you have permission to supervise visits. That's about the amount of support that we got. And then the caseworker wrote and said, if Jennifer appears under the influence, please let me know. And I was like, oh my gosh, what a big responsibility, and later I realized unless it was super obvious, I probably wouldn't know, just because she's been using since she was a preteen. But I think when we think about kids going into stranger foster care, I think what a beautiful holistic vision it is to say, when that child gets returned, when their parent is safe and healthy enough to parent them again, isn't it a beautiful vision that they would have someone standing in their corner as part of their circle of support that they didn't have previously? And, that's been a part of our story. So even though that's kind of a funny thing to say as a high point, I think it's just, it just speaks to the relationship that we created, that we were able to go out to lunch, even after the plan changed.
Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge Jennifer, your accomplishment. How many years did you say?
For what?
Clean.
Yeah, I'm going on 8.
8 years. Congratulations. I want to acknowledge that. And I want to once again thank you for being here and having this conversation and engaging with us and telling us how you make it work. So I'm going to start with you, Jennifer, this time. And what makes you hang in there when the going gets rough?
Goodness.
Every relationship gets rough at some point.
Yeah, at the end of the day, what I know is Jelana and her family are the only family I have. My mom's gone, my grandma's gone, like everybody's gone. My sister lives in another state, and I know at the end of the day that I'm human. I know that Jelana knows I'm human because she's proved to me that she knows that I'm human. Because I've made a lot of mistakes in our relationship or in my own life that has affected our relationship in a sense, but we've always been able to come back together. We've always been able to communicate, maybe not right then and there, but eventually we do communicate, and we get back on track, Yeah.
That's the very definition of a relationship and what makes a relationship work and what we're talking about. We're talking about first family, we're talking about resource family, but what we're actually talking about is relationships. And whether it's a relationship between these two sets of families or relationships with anyone you love, Jennifer, you just put it in a nutshell. What we're talking about is building and strengthening relationships. Thanks so much for that. You guys also share holidays, I'm going to presume, right? Okay. Share with me a good memory, good or bad, actually, of holidays. We all know holidays can sometimes go off the rails.
Oh,
you got one.
This last Christmas was amazing.
What you're about to say.
Tell a story, Jennifer.
Okay, so last Christmas I was at her house with our family, as well as her sister, her mom, her dad, all of that. And we're all sitting around in the living room, and her sister comes out that she's pregnant. Jelana and her mom get little ornaments. And yeah, that was amazing. That was
fun. It was a fun family
amazing. Yeah.
Vanessa, do
We
you
haven't had a horrible holiday yet.
We have not had a horrible holiday, knock on wood.
Wait a minute. That can't be true. At some point, the turkey has had to gone overcooked or the dressing is undercooked or something.
I think the biggest thing has been just kind of like, every family has what their own version of like normal is. And so I remember one year Jennifer's like, where are the pickles or something like that? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, pickles at Thanksgiving or whatever it was, and so we've just kind of had to merge with like what food is present. And, of course there's like a lot of, I think that there can be a lot of, emotion around it, but a lot of people are oftentimes curious, like, how does it work with Jennifer's 3 other children coming into our home, and what's the interaction like with Jennifer's son, who's 15 and is my adopted son? Like, what does that look like? People are really curious. And I feel like Jennifer said it best when we were sharing to a group of caseworkers recently that she feels like the relationship that the 4 kids have is more like cousins, like they come in and they are able to like interact and they know we're family, but it's not sharing the dailiness. And I just felt like that was a really good description, because a lot of people are curious about like, what does that look like? And I think one of the reasons that has worked as well as it has is because when Jennifer enters our family, right from the get-go, she's had this presence where she's not like laser focused just on her son, where the rest of us feel like we're just in the room and excluded. She is family to all of us. We all embrace her. We all talk. We all are like one big family at the dinner table. And so I think that that's really helped. And that's been something that we never had to really talk through. That's just kind of been her posture from the beginning. And I think that's helped to make it feel more cohesive and more like we are one big family, instead of Jennifer coming to visit her son at,
Tell me, what's the response you get from the children? Because there's more than just the one child, as Jelana mentioned, there's children in the family. In the greater family. So what's the response you get from the children that you surround yourself with?
Been doing it for so long.
Yeah,
they don't know anything differently.
First, because I do have the older children out of both of us. I have a 20-year-old and 21-year-old. you know, I remember when they were younger and like we first got to know each other and stuff, you know, like it would be like simple car rides to Jelana's or whatever, and they would ask me questions, you know, as simple as like, will Micah ever be able to go to on outings with us? Will Micah ever be able to do this with us? You know, and just through the years, they've been able to see, you know, like we've just done what is allowed, you know what I mean? Like, I've been able to take Micah to the movies with my youngest, so yeah, I mean, but other than that, like it's never really, they never really come to me with any questions or
An
anything.
issue. Okay. And Vanessa, what about you on your side? What's the response you get?
My kids love, more people in the house and more, more families. So everyone is like just a player on the team that's helpful and supportive. And I have kids that range from at this time at point 13 all the way to 24. So, my 13-year-old, her whole life has been caring for, people. My older kids, they drive. And so sometimes they'll go pick up, Nancy and help her with different things. So it's like, it's a full family thing, it's not awkward. I would say she doesn't do holidays with us. She's really introverted. And so she's welcome. I actually like invited her to my son's graduation. And I think that's still like new for her. But I still have this relationship with my biological sister. I raised her kids for most of their lives, and we're not in a healthy place, unfortunately. She really struggled with the boundaries that we were setting that were really, really important. So holidays have been heavy in our house. We've tried to do things like Mother's Day together, and that's hard for me because I've got guardianship and I'm parenting and I'm giving my fullest. And also I have this like huge piece of me that recognizes that when a child's biological parent is safe enough to come around, like I want to provide that opportunity for them. My biological father passed away when I was 13. And so my first time seeing him was actually at his funeral. And so I just have this strong conviction, like I need to provide that opportunity when I can. I recognize you asked a question, like what makes you hang in there even when the going gets rough? Like I have to remember that like I'm not the world's answers for all the things, and I have to set good boundaries and protect myself and my family as well. So it's something we're constantly, working on and navigating.
Do you guys want to go to the chat room and see if there are any questions you want to respond to? I've got some more questions for you, but maybe now we take a break and let our listeners join the conversation. I don't have it open. Let me see if I can do that.
I'm happy to do that. I would like to just say one thing, piggybacking on what Vanessa said. Jennifer and I have been in relationship. It's been almost 15 years since we initially walked into that courthouse and got to know one another. It was 4 full years before I invited Jennifer into the sacred space of our home. So I think when we do things like this, I don't want it to seem like it's some Disney version where we're like 1 in a million. Like I feel like this is possible, but it's slow going work. It takes a lot of discernment, a lot of boundaries, like Vanessa said. And who Jennifer was partnered with at the time was just objectively not a safe person. And because she was partnered with him,
I didn't hear that.
Not a safe person. And so we could not have her in our home when she and the baby's father were presenting as a couple. And so that was really hard. When the first holiday, we were able to like swing wide our front door and invite Jennifer and our kids in, like my heart felt so much joy, but it was a long time coming because we really went with the wisdom of like, it's easier to kind of incrementally open the door over time than to just at the first visit say like, come on in, and then have to slam it shut. It just felt like it was the more responsible way to do it. And Jennifer talks a lot when we share with caseworkers, just kind of about boundaries and how, that has affected her, in our relationship. But I just want to, share with the listeners, it was 4 years before she started.
Yeah. Well, I think we all understand no relationship is made overnight. I don't think, and so it's understandable that there are difficulties, there are ups and downs in any relationship, particularly a new relationship as you try to nurture it through its natural progression. And I'm glad you brought that up, Jelana. I'm going through the chat. I don't see any questions. If you guys see something you want to respond to, feel free to do so. I see we've got a lot of people from around the country. Okay, Essex South. I'm not sure where that is. Monmouth County, New Jersey is in with us this morning. Let's see, Middlesex, New Jersey, Camden, New Jersey. It looks like New Jersey is showing up. Okay, someone wrote, okay, I'm not sure what that means. Okay, West Virginia is true. Good morning, Mineral County, West Virginia. Thanks everyone for showing up today. I want to know, Vanessa, let's start with you. What should first families do to strengthen, what can, not should, what can first families do to strengthen that relationship?
So I have some notes over here because this one really took me some time. I've not been in that position. And so just want to be really mindful. But I think recognizing that there's a huge shift happening in every family that says yes to caring for a child. And so there's a lot of dynamics, there's a lot of emotions and just navigating. Everyone in the home is saying yes to loving and protecting and building a relationship with this child. I think for me, like the best feeling is to be seen as extended family. I personally, I just have my own conviction that like any child that comes into my home, I'm going to be auntie, and not mom. And so it's funny though, because then my kids end up being brothers and sisters. So, but yes, auntie and uncle is how I just love to be seen.
That's your preferred. Okay. Is it Auntie Nissa or Auntie Vanessa?
Auntie Vanessa.
Okay. And so Jelana and Jennifer, let me ask you, not what should first families do, but what can first families do to strengthen this relationship?
I think something that Jennifer and I have talked about that's really, I think, essential is to just recognize that there's a power differential at play here. I think, child welfare, though it might not be overtly set up like this, there's kind of a little bit of an us versus them dynamic that's inherently at play. Like I'm removing this child from you, which some people can kind of put in parentheses like bad parent, and I'm placing him with you, good parent. Of course, those are not the adjectives. The adjectives that should be used are safe and healthy, not good and bad. But I think, there's a time where I think a lot of us want to just believe that like our feelings and our intentions are going to come through in the way that we're communicating. But I think when there's such high stakes of like you are welcoming in somebody else's most precious, cherished possession, their child, there is a time for more overt communication. And one of the things I like to do with other kiddos that I've welcomed along the last 20 years of fostering is to just overtly tell the parents, I am on your team. I am not here to replace you. I am here so that when your child returns with you, your bond will be strong, just to make sure that there's no like threatening kind of takeover energy and to kind of get rid of whatever the good, those power differentials are. I think it took a lot of courage for Jennifer in our particular situation to reach out to me first and say, Jelana, I grew up in this office. Will you please supervise visits for me? I am internally grateful that she reached out to ask that.
But I don't think that would have been possible if you didn't start transporting.
That's true. I did my own transport. I was close to the office and I just wanted the opportunity to look her in the eye and say like, hello and goodbye. And this is kind of what's going on in your kiddo's life this week. And I also intentionally saved a lot of firsts. He was an infant when he came with me, like first time taking this bite of food or whatever, just trying to include her as much as possible.
So, one thing you mentioned, and one thing we've talked a lot about here at Fostering Families Today, is this evolution of the language of how we refer to one another and how children are referred, children in care are referred to, or how families are referred to. And so what I'm hearing is when you redefined this relationship, naturally what occurs is that you redefine how you refer to the person that you're working with, the other member of the team. So is that what I'm hearing, Jelana, is that there was this sort of metamorphosis in the language that you're using, which helped you to create that that bond?
Yeah, I think so, Valerie. I think, I think it boils down to like, there's a time and a place for just believing that like our intentions will be conveyed through our tone and through the words we're saying, but there's also a time to just say what we mean to say and to just be really overt with it, which is, I'm not trying to replace you. I can tell you're a good parent because I see da 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 da, or whatever way to compliment. And to just say, I hope that, when your child gets returned to you, my job is that your bond will be strong. I'm not here to work against you. I'm here to work with you. And so I do think that there's a time and a place for that. And I think, for resource parents to recognize a lot of times, because of the shame or whatnot that child welfare involved parents are feeling in the moment, the onus is on us to just maybe extend that first olive branch of like, hi, how are you? I would love to be in relationship with you as is appropriate, and of course, checking in with the caseworker to just make sure that there are no, overt safety issues or whatnot. But I think a lot of the times there's not those things. It's just fear of the unknown that keep the parties separated.
Vanessa, you want to join in? You want to?
Yeah, I just was gonna say that one of my dreams is that we would just be the biggest champions of, families. And I think about, the intense 3 months that I got to spend with Nancy, but then what it's been like over the last, 4 to 5 years with her is just really like cheering her on and helping her see her value. She really thought that the way she was being treated was appropriate, and that she deserved, everything that she got, all the things that were bad that came to her. And it was just like really helping her to like redefine and like relook at who she is, and how she deserves to be honored and respected and cherished, and I think her and I just have a really unique connection because I experienced some really similar things when I was younger. And so it was kind of easy for me to just be like, get in there and just cheer her on. And we've cried lots of tears together. We've spent a lot of time just like truly just like bonding. And when she needs someone, she knows who to call, and she doesn't have people up here either. And so she has spent some seasons living with us. And usually I gotta be really clear with our boundaries, like how much time do you need? Okay, talk to the spouse. This is what he said, we're on board. And just try to really honor those things. But I want to make sure that, sometimes we just need a little bit extra help. And I want to be there to support her as she's working really hard, and it takes time.
I want to acknowledge Mary and Gary Garcia, who joined us from Dallas, Texas. They write, they have kinship guardianship of their grandson, and they're working on becoming licensed foster parents of our grandson. And then Stacy Stahl joins us from, I'm not sure, from Washoe County, Nevada. Thanks for being here today with us, Stacy. Thank you to all of our listeners who've joined us for this very important conversations. As in every relationship, I don't want to say that there should be hard or fast rules, okay? There should always be some wiggle room. But is there anything, Vanessa, I'm going to start with you. Is there anything that should not be done or not be said by either resource parents or first families?
I feel like, gosh, there should be like this ginormous list actually, but the things that I kind of thought through was you just can never replace the biological parents, I speak again as an adoptee, like there is just a love that we have for our parents, even if they have wronged us. Like there is just a bond, and that needs to be honored, and it needs to be cherished. And then the other thing is just really avoid oversharing on social media. I feel like this is an area too for myself that I've like, it's hard sometimes because I think the voice of resource foster parents is so big, and the voices of those with lived experience from, someone like Jennifer, who's, walking this road less traveled, as Jelana says, getting to share from, Jennifer's own words what it's like I want to hear from Jennifer's. I want to hear, I want to be a champion of, the Jennifers who have taken brave steps and, fallen and got back up. And, just like us, we're all far from perfect, but I want to hear more of those victory stories. So I just be really mindful of oversharing about your child's story online.
We see that a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I just think back
Jennifer-
to when they become an adult and they look back and see this post, how are they going to be feeling when they read this post? You know?
That's like it's sharing naked pictures of your baby. Please don't, don't. Yeah. I mean, it seems okay when you're in the living room and everybody's sharing pictures of that first bath, but yeah, oversharing. Thanks for that, Vanessa. Jennifer, Jelana, once again, I don't want to say what should, because I don't want those hard and fast rules, but I'm going to ask you, is there anything first and birth parents should not say or not do? Jennifer, let's start with you.
You know, a big thing for me, I guess, is just don't just identify me as my label, you know.
Good,
Get to
good.
know me. You know, I'm not just a meth head, you know, that everybody wanted to call me, you know. There was much more to me, you know, before my relapse back then, you know. I had a full-time job. I was clean for almost 5 years, you know, like all these things, but that was so quickly to be forgotten about when I relapsed and had my kid taken, you know. Yeah.
That's good. I think just to echo what Jennifer and Vanessa have said, I think there's a way that we think one of the best gifts we can give our kids on both sides of the aisle is to speak about one another in a way that builds the other up. Sure, there might be some inner dialogue, there might be some concerns, but those are not to be voiced out loud in front of the children. The details of the case are not to be voiced out loud. If a parent's missing a visit, you're not, you know, there are things that we need to come alongside the child with the effects of, but we're not going to we're not going to emote like, oh my gosh, like, is she ever, like, none of that. That is all just for us. And I think it's important, as Vanessa said, like, who we're talking with. I think we need an inner circle of folks that we can just be ourselves and share the real deal with, but that circle needs to be kept real tight because really this is not what's happening with Jennifer and what's happening with her children. Those are private details of their story. And I am privileged to be included in the circle, but it is not mine to share. So I talk with the agency staff and I, talk with Jennifer and I work on just being as positive as possible because we all know whether it's agency staff or different parents or on different sides of the aisle, there are ways in which we can build each other up. And then there are also ways that we can tear each other down by what we're saying. And so I think just being really intentional about that. I also saw in the chat, Valerie, a question about like, how do these relationships take place? And I just want to say that, for those that maybe are struggling with some of the intrinsic motivation or even just the fear kind of keeping people apart, Annie E. Casey does great icebreaker questions that you as the resource parent or as agency staff can actually go through and kind of bring people together and have a little bit of this like, hey, we're all on the same page type thing. So if I would encourage folks that are like, I have no idea where to even begin. I would like to have something like this, but what's the first step? I don't feel like I have the skills. I would just encourage people to look up and talk to their agency about icebreakers.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Susan asked a question. What were the trust issues you needed to see in order to know that you could trust one another?
And she even expanded on that question, which she said, what are some issues that you might have had? Each of you take a step back and what kind of communication was best, phone, text, email, like what did that look like? I didn't experience that with Nancy, but I did experience it with my sister. We had, 22 years of, raising kids together. And so I knew when she was using. I knew when she was not being consistent anymore. We had like regular visits on, a Sunday, or her phone call times were supposed to be at 6 o'clock every Sunday. And if she was missing those, something was going on. And she would often want to call multiple days in the week or just call and sometimes just show up, which was so hard for me to say no, but I had to learn to say, like, we have a designated time for a reason. When you just show up, it throws all of us kind of in a whirlwind. And they have so many things. They've got school and they've got sports and they've got homework and they have, a system set up. And so they're prepared to tell you all about their week on that Sunday, and I need you to honor that. And sometimes I had to pull in my husband to help me set some of those boundaries, because I just want to say yes a lot. So I needed to have my partner help out there.
Jennifer, you want to weigh in on that?
You know, for me, can you refresh the question real quick? Sorry.
Vanessa was talking about some boundaries she had to set, whether or not there are trust issues that needed to be overcome.
Yeah, you know, I didn't learn boundaries until actually I met Jelana. I know that seems really weird. You know, I didn't learn anything. Like my grandma, she did everything for my mom. You know, there was no boundaries. Like, you know, so I didn't learn any of that. Anyways, with that being said, I still would not show up to Jelana's house loaded. You know, I would never show up unannounced, unless it was like a dire emergency. Like, you know, no. And our best way to communicate, I feel like, is text message. But we speak to each other at least once a week, whether it be through text message, voice, or whatever, you know, phone call, whatever. Yeah.
Because we're raising two full biological brothers. And so even though they're being raised in a household about 2 miles apart in the same city, there are a lot of similarities between the boys. It's almost like this like nature versus nurture experiment, you know, unfolding before our very eyes. And so there are a lot of ways that we're able to kind of compare notes and encourage one another, a lot of ways that the boys are similar. Yeah. And it's just such a thrill to be able to just affirm what I've known from the very beginning, which is like Jennifer has always loved her kids. She's always been a good mom. She's just had some hurdles along the way. So it's just a joy to see her living into that, you know, for the past 7 years, almost 8 of her being clean. So that's awesome. I see a question in the chat, Valerie, that I would love to answer if that's okay. It's from Maria.
Yeah, we're running short on time, but go ahead.
Oh, she just says, I feel like this is a really important question. She says, I've seen a lot of resource parents foster with the intention of adopting. At times they get upset when bio parents are getting close to reunifying. What would you recommend saying to those resource parents to help build a solid relationship between them? And I think that this is so important that that we go in with the expectation that the goal of what the very goal of foster care is, and to say, I know I have a lot of resource parents along the way that have been fired up at one time or another, talking about like, if the child stays, their future will be so much brighter and they have their own room here or whatnot. And to really say, it's not about that. It's not about, you know, the bedspread that they have at your house versus being, you know, 1 person out of 8 in an apartment. It is not about that. It is about, are the parents safe and healthy enough? And really, I know that that can strike a lot of fear into resource parents, but I think we have to be really clear-eyed about what the goal is here. And I share with people, there is no shame. If you feel like your heart would be irreparably broken forever, you can't do it, that is fine. Please go the straight adoption route if that's what you're looking for. There's no shame in that. But please don't go into foster care hoping that you will adopt, because then it's really hard to genuinely root for the parent.
I want to, thanks for sharing that, Jelana. I want to share some advice from the Children's Trust Fund Alliance about strengthening your relationship, and including, they have a guide on their website. Let's go to slide 5 with just some tips or hints from the Children's Trust Fund Alliance. Slide 5, begin building a positive relationship at the start. The next one, support the relationship. Children can realize they do not have to choose one family over another, and adults can get through difficult situations by communicating and supporting one another. Also, helping siblings, this is something important, maintain regular contact is another important way to strengthen and support the relationship. Next slide. 7, and Jelana, you just talked about this. Remember, reunification is the goal whenever possible. The foster parent or kinship caregiver should look for ways to be supportive of the first family, and in turn, we just talked about this, the first family can keep the foster parent, kinship caregiver updated on their progress, concerns, and any other important information. Slide 8. Keep the relationship strong after reunification. We're looking at this. It's happening. It's unfolding right in front of our eyes. Some foster parents, and this comes from the Children's Trust Fund Alliance, some foster parents become aunties and uncles. So why not explore alternative family or living arrangements if a birth parent wishes to keep everyone involved as a support system similar to an extended family? This is what we're witnessing. I'm so glad you guys are here today to share your experience with us. For more information on how you can build and strengthen your family, visit the Children's Trust Fund Alliance at ctfalliance.org. We're almost out of time, but before we go, Jennifer and Jelana have collaborated on a book. Is that correct? It's a collaboration. It's slide 4. Tell us about the book, Jelana.
Well, it's a book that came out last summer. It's called A Love Stretched Life. And really the story of all the ups and downs, so much more than we were able to share with you today, are told in the book. And really, I think it boils down to we are changed in proximity to people who have lived different stories from us. And that has certainly been my invitation as a resource parent and adoptive parent. And so there are 3 main stories in the book, but the story between Jennifer and I are one of them. And it's available on Amazon and where books are sold. But Jennifer and I have had a lot of opportunities, which has been the best part, I think, to just share at conferences, share with caseworkers. And it's been great.
Yeah, it's my way of giving back to women that are like me. So.
Thank you. Before we go, I want to give Vanessa and Jelana and Jennifer, give me a word of wisdom that you would share with our listeners today on making this relationship work. Vanessa, don't look frightened. Just words of wisdom. Give it to me, girl.
I can't put it in just like one word, but we should be champions of each other. That is like, if I could just have like something on my tombstone, just say champion, like just love each other, just grow in your empathy and champion each other, get behind each other.
Okay, Jennifer, words of wisdom.
Just have patience with us.
And I would use the word endurance. We're running a marathon here, and there's going to be a lot of twists and turns, but think the best of one another and have endurance.
Have endurance, patience, and champion. Okay, thank you. Anything I left out that you want to share with our listeners today?
One thing I was just thinking about is, we talked really just specifically about like bio parent, but there are siblings that are often involved and grandparents. And so just want to reiterate the importance that sometimes when you can't have that relationship with the biological parent, like making sure that you are being really intentional about investing in the relationship between siblings and extended family as well.
Yeah. Got to get the sibling, cannot separate the siblings, got to get them involved. Yeah. Anything, Jelana and Jennifer, I didn't ask that you are dying to share with listeners this morning?
Nope.
We all good? Okay. Well, that does it. And I thank you once again, Jennifer, Jelana, Vanessa, for being vulnerable, for being open, for sharing your stories, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your time with us. And before we go, I want to thank our sponsor today, once again, the National Foster Parent Association. Connections was a key focal point of the group's recent education conference. Today, we've been talking about connections. What a perfect matchup. The connections we've been listening to, how important they are. The National Foster Parent Association, thank you. NFPA provides much needed training, support, and resources to all families, foster, adoptive, kinship, and biological. The National Foster Parent Association helps connect you. For more information, visit their website, nfpa.org. Thank you once again to all of our guests for being generous with your time and your experiences. For our listeners joining us today, you can stay on top of what's happening in child social welfare by visiting our sister publications, The Imprint and Youth Voices Rising. We have got webinars we're looking at for 2024. If you have any ideas, something you want to see us talk about, send us an email. You can send it to info@fosteringmediaconnections.org. That's info@fosteringmediaconnections.org. Slide 11. And if you'd like to have your family featured in an upcoming issue of the magazine Fostering Families Today, or if you have an idea for a webinar or a story idea, send us an email, info@fosteringmediaconnections.org. We love to see families on the covers of our magazines. You guys, Jennifer, Jelana, Vanessa, if you've got a picture or a story that you want to share, you know I'm always open. You know where to reach me. So I look forward to talking with you in the future. So thank you all very much. Slide 12. You know, it really takes a team to make these webinars work. And I want to thank our team members. You see them here on the screen. Every one of us works very hard throughout the months leading up to each webinar to make sure we have up-to-date information and the correct information to share with our listeners and in the magazine to share with our readers. I want to take an opportunity to say goodbye to Sarah Sangelet. She is our communications and engagement manager. This is her last webinar with us. Sarah makes me look good. She makes this work smoothly. So Sarah, goodbye. Thank you for everything you've done for me over the past couple of years. Thank you for being supportive and encouraging and engaging with not just me, but with our guests who join us for these webinars. So thank you. Goodbye, Sarah. I'm going to miss you. Goodbye, Jennifer, Jelana, and Vanessa. We'll talk soon. Okay, goodbye, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Valerie Edwards for Fostering Families Today. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.